Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. Hari Om, salutations to all. So we were seeing the answer of the disciple, of the Guru. When the disciple has asked the question about what is that ultimate state when all the five koshas are negated, is it a state of absence? And the Guru said, yes, it appears to be like that, but it is not so, because the knower of that absence is present there. And the nature of that knower is the self. As long as there is something to witness, it is consciousness which is called the Sakshi, which witnesses everything. But when all the layers are transcended and there is nothing to witness, the witness hood of the self drops, but the self remains in the pure state, unconditional state. And so then that was further explained with an example also. The example was of the reflection of the sun in the pot of water. So when the pot, the water and the reflection all are transcended, one looks up and sees the sun, the source of this reflection. So that was what was discussed in 219, and that thought is taken ahead in 220, 221, 222. 3 verses are put together here. Deham dhiyam chit pratibimbam evam visrijya buddhau nihitam guhayam drashtaram atmanam bodham sarva prakasham sadasadvilakshanam nityam vibhum sarvagatam susukshmam antarbahishunyaman nanyamatmanaha vijñāya samyak nijarūpametat uman vipāpmā virajo vimrityuhu vishoka ānanda ghano vipaschita swayam kutaschinna bibheti kaschita nānyosti pantha bhavabandha mukte vinas swatattvagamam mumukshoho. So now when he says, Deham dhiyam chit pratibimbam evam, the body, that is the pot, the water, that is the mind and intellect, and chit pratibimbam, the reflection of the sun, which is the jiva or the ego, chidabhas in us, visrijya. When one has transcended these three, visrijya buddhau nihitam guhayam, and one enters the cave of the heart. Now this cave means what? So cave is generally an enclosed place and one enters into that. So here in this context, what does it mean? It means entering into the core of our personality, into the essence, that what is that which enlivens the body, mind and intellect. Also the cave is surrounded, there is darkness inside. In the same way, when these wrong notions are there about who am I, that is the darkness that is there. But when one transcends these through proper study, knowledge, contemplation, and one turns the attention within, one goes to the root of these wrong notions and removes them. How does one remove? Because what one discovers there is drishtaram. One sees the self, the seer. One becomes aware that I am that pure consciousness, I am that seer, I am that enlivener of all the body, mind, intellect and everything else that is in the world. So one sees that, drashtaram, atmanam akhanda bodham. And the nature of this drashta, now the next few words, they describe the nature of this drashta. That who is this drashta? All are the descriptions or pointers, we should say. These are the pointers of that self. So the self is not an absence. The ultimate state is not an absence. The ultimate state is of pure consciousness, which is to be known as one's own self. That was also said. Not that there is some consciousness. What was said? It is not an absence, but it is a presence, and that presence is you as the pure consciousness, as the self. Now, what are the pointers of that self? Those are being described, which are my pointers as my true nature. So, akhanda bodham, unbroken knowledge. Generally, when we say knowledge, we always consider knowledge of physics, knowledge of chemistry, of biology, of things. Right now when we are using this facility, so then knowledge of this computer, knowledge of this Vivek Chudamani, knowledge of various things that I see, hear, taste, smell, touch. That is the knowledge we refer to, which is objective knowledge and which has breaks, because it is about the finite. 1. 2, it is using the knower, the mind and intellect, which is also finite. So using the mind and the intellect, I am connecting to the finite objects, and when the knower and the known, they contact each other, then this knowledge will arise. And this knowledge will stay for some time till the next knowledge arises. The next knowledge that arises replaces this knowledge. So I'm seeing the computer right now. The moment I turn and I see the bottle, the knowledge of computer gone, the knowledge of bottle rises. So knowledge, when we say, generally we always refer to objective knowledge. And it is finite, khanda. Akhanda bodha means not that knowledge of something that always remains. Akhanda bodha means the ability that the mind and intellect and the senses have to gain the knowledge is because of the knowledge principle. Absolute knowledge, not knowledge of. That absolute knowledge remains the same. It doesn't change. The ability to know in the buddhi is because of the presence of consciousness. That consciousness is called akhanda bodha, because in it there is no duality of knower and known. So there is no need for the knower to contact the known and then the knowledge to arise, because there is no two, there is no difference. There is only one pure consciousness, which is of the nature of knowledge. Jnana Swarupa it is called. Akhanda Bodha is Jnana Swarupa. And so the nature of this pure consciousness itself is knowledge. What does it know? It knows itself. One, Swayam Jyoti was said earlier. It knows itself. And in its presence, the BMI get the capability of knowing everything else. And hence, knowing this pure consciousness, everything else is known. That's what the Upanishad says. That what is that knowing which everything else is known? Kasminnu bhagavo vijñāte sarvamidam vijñātam bhavati. Knowing which nothing remains that I don't know. That is this knowledge. Knowledge of pure consciousness. Again, it's a limitation of language to say knowledge of consciousness. Akhanda Bodha means knowledge which is consciousness, and that is me. So the idea here is, generally we say, I need happiness. But when we come to understand our true nature, we say, I am happiness. Where this I is not the ego, I is pure I. In the same way, I need knowledge. I am ignorant. These are expressions at the BMI level. But when we shift the attention to the self, the nature of the self is knowledge. See, this is also, remember, in the context of the question. So it is contrasting. An absence does not have all these qualities. Absence or shunya is just shunya. But when we say it is not an absence, there is a presence, that is the knower, and the nature of the knower is all these, is pure knowledge. Enlivening is its quality. Like the nature of the sun is light. In the same way, the nature of consciousness is knowledge. Chaitanya, Chit Swarup, Jnana Swarup is this Atma. So Akhanda Bodha, the knower is always of the nature of knowledge. Consciousness is Jnana Swarup, because there is nothing else that is required to know consciousness. Like we don't require a light to see the sun. We require a light to see other things in the world. In the dark room we go in, we require a light to see. But to see the sun, we don't require any light. The nature of the sun is knowledge, is light. Same way, our nature is pure consciousness. Drashtaram Atmanam Akhanda Bodham. Sarva Prakasham. It illumines everything. Sadasad Vilakshanam. It is different from Sat and Asat. Now here the word Sat does not mean existence. Here the word Sat means what is gross is Sat, and Asat means what is subtle, not gross. Meaning the gross objects are Sat, and the subtler emotions, feelings, thoughts, vasanas, they are Asat. So gross and subtle is the meaning. So it is different from gross and subtle. Definitely it is different from the body, which is gross. Prana, mind, intellect, and Anandamaya Kosha. Subtle. It is beyond the five, which is what we studied earlier. Pancha Kosha Vilakshana. So this Atma is that which is beyond the gross, beyond the subtle. In Gurudev's commentary, it is also translated as form and formless. Either gross or subtle, or form and formless. It is beyond both form and formless. Our mind doesn't have a form in that sense. We can't see, hear, taste, smell and touch the mind. The body has a form which is perceptible to the senses. That which is not perceptible to the senses is the subtler. So, Sarva Prakasham Sadasad Vilakshanam. Now remember, all this is Atmanam. The word Atmanam is myself. The true nature of the self is this. Nityam, it is eternal. Never it is not present. It is existence which is existing at all times. Nityam Vibhum. It is all pervasive. Sarvagatam has gone everywhere. Susukshmam. It is very subtle. So as we have seen earlier, subtlety is measured by pervasiveness. When a thing is gross, grosser the thing is, lesser the pervasiveness. Subtler the thing is, more the pervasiveness. So the body is gross when we say. So the pervasiveness of the body is only from the top of the head to the tip of the toe, that much. But prana is more pervasive than the body. Prana not only energizes the body, but the prana sharira is more pervasive. Around the body also, it has the energy field is there. It is what people call as the aura. Mind is more pervasive than prana. Because the state of the mind affects the prana. Anger, the prana functions in a particular way. Passion, prana functions in a particular way. Peace, it functions in a particular way. So the prana shakti is subtler than the body. Subtler than prana is the mind. Subtler than the mind is the buddhi. Because mind works in the realm of known. Mind works in the realm of the emotions. And buddhi works in the realm of the unknown also. Subtler than the buddhi is the ahankar. The notion of I, identified with the BMI. That pervades all actions. That pervades even the dream state. And then kosha wise, if we see, is the bliss sheath. Anandamaya kosha, where the BMI are dormant, but this awareness is there that there is an absence of everything. So that keeps increasing in order of subtlety. But what is that which enlivens all these and which is all pervasive? What was said earlier word, vibhum sarvagatam. That's the reasoning for susukshma. Sukshma is subtle. Susukshma is extremely subtle. Because it is all pervasive, it is not an object. It cannot be grasped by the body, mind, intellect, speech. That's why it is extremely subtle. But that which enlivens everything else. Nityam, vibhum, sarvagatam, susukshmam, antar bahi, shunyam. See, this is one word. Huh? Don't say, see the word shunya is here. So the state is blank. No, it is antar bahi shunyam. One word. It is devoid of these distinctions of inside and outside. So this inside and outside is with reference to what? It is with reference to the body. So with reference to this body, we say this is outside world and we turn within. Now within doesn't mean inside the body. Within means turn the attention of the mind from the body to the prana to the mind, that way, inside. So this inside and outside is with reference to the body. In the pure consciousness, there is no inside and outside. The example given for that is a pot which is put in the ocean. Now inside the pot is water, outside the pot is water. And one says water is all pervasive. But this inside and outside is with reference to what? It only is with reference to the pot. In water, there is no division of inside and outside. The moment the pot is put in there, then we say, okay, this water inside the pot, outside the pot. Same thing is said by the great masters and saints, in various bhajans. So one of them is, Andar Ram, Bahar Ram, Jahan Dekho So Ram Hi Ram. Guru Kripa Anjan Payo Mere Bhai. Ram Bina Kachu Dekhat Nahi. That I got the blessings of my Guru and I got the vision of the Lord. And this vision, what has it done? It has removed all these differences. So there is nothing separate inside and outside. There is one thing which is manifesting everywhere. Ram alone is everywhere. So in that way here he says, Antar Bahi Shunyam. The division of inside and outside is with reference to the body. And when we remove that identification, then there is no division at all. If you remove the pot or you destroy the pot in that sense, then again the water is just water. There is no inside and outside. So antar bahi shunyam, ananyam, there is no other there. Anya means the other. Ananya, there is no other in that state. There is only one. Like the waker alone is, when the person wakes up and one says, I alone am. All that duality which was seen was appearance of this one. Entire dream world, all the dream characters, living, non-living, everything was the appearance of one. Ananyam. Ananyam Atmanaha. These are the nature of the Atma, pointers. Now, Vijnaya Samyak Nija Rupa Metat. Having known this Atma to be one's own true nature, self, Nija Rupa Metat. And how should you know this? Samyak. Very well. Meaning not only intellectually, but through contemplation, through withdrawing the attention, one can come to experience this. Then Samyak Vijnaya. Puman, a person, what happens to the person then? Now the rest is the result of this. Puman Vipapma is purified. What is this Vipapma? Virajo Vimrityuhu. Free from the impurities of the gunas, and specifically they have written here Rajas. Free from this Rajas. Virajo. By implication, all the three gunas. Tamas and Sattva also. So Vishuddho, Vipapma, Virajo, Vimrityuhu. And goes beyond death also. Because death is appears to be for the body. But if we actually go to see, it is nothing but one modification of the body. The body appears to be alive because of the presence of consciousness. And that consciousness reflecting in the mind and intellect, further identifying with the body, so the body appears to be alive. It was dead before also. But it goes through all the modifications. It is conceived, it is born, it grows, it becomes old, it decays, and then it dies. So these 6 modifications the body goes through. It appears that the body has gone through. But why does it go through that? Because of presence of the mind enlivened by consciousness. At the moment of death, what happens? This mind ejects out of the body. Body is back to its own true nature, which is made up of 5 elements. It is inert. It is already dead. So it starts decomposing again, go back to 5 elements. So actually, if we see who died, nobody died. Body which was already dead is dead now. Jiva does not die because Jiva takes up another body as per the Jiva's karma. Atma does not die, it is immortal. So who died? Nobody died actually. But the expression of the life of the Jiva in that body has stopped. That's why the example given is of the person changing the old clothes and taking up new clothes. So if a person drops the old clothes, the clothes are inert in any case. The entity who was wearing them is still alive. So why does one mourn the death of somebody? Actually, what one is grieving for is not the death of that person. One is grieving for one's own attachment and the cessation of that person's expression in that equipment. That's why it is, in that sense, from intellectual standpoint, it is foolish to cry over anybody's death, because it is like crying over changing the old clothes. Why should I cry over changing the old clothes? The old clothes I dropped and I worn the new clothes. I should be happy. The jiva who is attached also takes time to reconcile to that fact that I have dropped this body. And the people who are left behind also are attached to that jiva and that expression of the jiva through that body. So one has sorrow. One doesn't have sorrow for anybody and everybody who dies. The people to whom one is attached, when they pass away, then there is a sorrow, which means the sorrow is actually caused by my attachment to them and the expressions of that jivatma through that particular body. When this becomes very clear to me that Atma does not die, Jiva has gone from one body to another, body was already dead. And when that Vairagya comes and a person comes to realize my true nature as immortal self, because it's beyond body, beyond mind, beyond all changes, then that is called Vimrityu. One has gone beyond Mrityu. That is the physical, that's the literal meaning of the word Mrityu. Now, Mrityu in Vedanta is not only ultimate death of the body. Every minute when change is happening, change is equal to death. Because every change is the death of the previous condition and birth of the new condition. So when it is said Vimrityu, what does it mean? It means going beyond change into the realm of the changeless. There is one pure changeless consciousness which is free from all the 6 modifications of the body, which is free from all modifications of the mind, 6 vikaras of the mind, even the good qualities of the mind, values, ideals, goals. It is beyond all these. This is in the realm of the change. And when one through contemplation has withdrawn the attention, one realizes the changeless. Then in the world one may play any role, having goals and ambition, etc. But one knows that this is only the role that I am playing. I am not this. Today I don't know I am not this. So I get attached to these roles thinking I am this. Like an actor who knows himself that I am not this role, plays that role very effectively. So we were on the actor. So the actor who knows the role plays the role as a role, not as the reality. In the same way, when we have withdrawn from the world, when we are sitting for a few moments of quiet contemplation and we come to experience that still center in us, the changeless center in us, it does not make us dull, indifferent, disinterested in the world. No. The proof of that is the deep sleep. See, few moments of deep sleep, how energized the body and the mind is. Imagine that is only few moments when that mind and intellect and the body have become quiet. That also by process of nature, unconsciously. If consciously one withdraws and experiences the presence of pure consciousness in its state, in its pure state, how much more dynamic one will become. Which is what you see so many great masters, how they become so dynamic and they work tirelessly. There is no insecurity in their mind, no agitations in the mind, pure love, tireless service, sharing of knowledge. They may sit quietly like Ramana Maharshi, or they may go around the world like Gurudev or Vivekananda or Samarth Ramdas. It does not matter, their abidance in the self is the same. Depending on whatever is the need, the master serves. And whatever is the prarabdha of the body, according to that, the service will happen. So this is that. Virajo vimrutyuhu vipapma. No agitations, beyond all the three gunas, beyond change, into the realm of changeless. How long will we play with the change? And why, when we play with the change, not knowing the changeless, then we get attached to that which is changing. And obviously what is changing by nature is going to change. I feel miserable. Why did this change? So then comes agitation, papa, dukkha, shoka, all that comes. Why? Because I don't know what is that which is changeless in me. And that what is in me is changeless, is everywhere changeless. So I don't know what is changeless. Continuously I am attached to what is changing. And the strange part is, look at the contradiction. The human being does not know the changeless, is continuously playing with the change, and does not even want to accept change, so resist change. Then where will there be happiness? If I am continuously resisting change also, why am I resisting change? Because I love to be attached to one thing, fixated on a few things, and I don't want them to change. So when a person drops this attachment, one accepts whatever is changing is changing. It will change, we know it. Happiness comes, it goes. Sorrow comes, it goes. Heat comes, goes. Cold comes, goes. It comes and goes. When we don't know this very clearly, or we know it but we don't apply it, then there is misery in life. People change, objects change, situation changes. How much it has changed in just a few years. Every single day change keeps on happening. And if you put it all together in a few years, a drastic change appears. So when one understands that I have to live in the world, I need to play with the changing, with the attitude of sportsmanship. There is nothing to gain or lose. Love the sport, love the act of playing. So living in the world, I love that act of living here and doing what best I can according to my swadharma. I know things will change. So detachment while living in the world, and then knowledge of the changeless. If I have these two, then I go beyond sorrow and suffering. But if I don't have these two, misery is sure. And unfortunately, what one will do is one will blame everybody else outside for the misery. But the fact is, I don't have detachment, I don't have knowledge of the changeless, so I am suffering. Here is a person who is gone beyond these attachments, gone beyond this ignorance, and has withdrawn and has come to know the self. So, Puman, Vipapma, Virajo, Vimrityu. Moving ahead, he says, Vishoka, free from Shoka. See, this is what it is. If Papa is there, Rajas is there, and Mrityu is there, then Shoka will happen. But if Vipapa, Viraja, Vimrityu, then Vishoka, no Shoka at all. Because I know how to play with the change. This example we have given earlier, but that's the best example. When one is not attached to the toys of the childhood, even if one has to play with the children, one will happily play with those toys and one will drop it just like that. There is no feeling of attachment and so no consequential sorrow at all in that. World is a world full of toys. One plays. This is what it is. Play. And when one has to drop it, drop it. Nothing. One doesn't feel any misery inside. Great masters have that attitude even to their own body. Our body has to die, it will die. What have I got to do with it? Because the attachment is not there to the body. So Vishoka, free from all shoka, grief. What is the cause of shoka? Cause of shoka is moha. Cause of moha is ajnana. Ignorance leads to delusion. Delusion leads to bhaya. Bhaya leads to shoka. Bhaya and shoka, either of these or both of these can come because of moha. When I am deluded, so simplest example is when I don't see the rope, ignorance of the rope makes me see the snake, that is delusion, moha. Now when I have moha, then I will have both bhaya and shoka. And now the snake is there, now I'm scared, the snake may bite me, and then it may either bhaya, or I already assume that snake has bit me, so then I am going to die, so then shoka. So either one, which fear will ultimately lead to shoka only, or both will be there. So vishoka means a person who has gone beyond moha and ajnana, ignorance and delusion. When that is crossed, vishoka. Then what is the experience of that person? Ananda ghana, homogeneous mass of bliss. Just like it was said earlier, akhanda bodha. So see the first word, the earlier shloka, 220, akhanda bodha is Chaitanya Swarup. 221, Nitya Vibhu is Sat Swarup. And now Ananda Ghana is Ananda Swarup. So Sat Chit Anand is indicated 3 words, 3 verses. So Vishoka. So it is not just an absence of sorrow. Again here he clarifies, no, it is not only absence of sorrow. It is Ananda Ghana. It is a homogeneous mass of bliss, unbroken bliss. Not that happiness that is temporary that we experience while enjoying some sense objects. What we saw earlier, no? Priya, Moda, Pramoda. This Priya, Moda, Pramoda is the expression of Anandamaya Kosha, and they come and they go. They change depending on the object and our relationship with that object. But this unbroken happiness, bliss, is the nature of the Atma. In fact, when we did Anandamaya Kosha, the point to be understood here is this Priya, Moda and Pramoda are actually expressions of this pure bliss of the self only, but manifesting through the limited equipment. It is only same bliss. All the bliss in the world, pleasure in the world, enjoyment in the world comes only from the Atma. There is no other source of bliss in the world. Only Atma. When this Atma's bliss is revealed through the mind, we say it is happiness. Why? Because the agitation stopped and the reflection of the Atma is nature of bliss. So we feel happy. We feel nice. But the moment that next desire arises, again that one has come out from that state, again one is extroverted. Unfortunately, one thinks that this happiness came from this particular object, this person, that situation. All bliss is a manifestation of the bliss of the self alone. Pleasure, happiness, joy, whatever we call it, at the body, mind, intellect level, it is all small expressions of the infinite bliss which is the nature of the self. Who is a wise person? Who turns the attention away from these petty, paltry, temporary pleasures and turns the attention to the self, whose nature is infinite bliss. Now see the difference. When we are running in the world behind temporary pleasure, we work hard, we go through stress, worry, tension, anxiety, and get the pleasure also. And no doubt it feels nice, tickling of the senses happens, one feels good about it. Agitation of the mind stops, one feels happy about it. But in the same world, There are great masters who say that enough of all this. Why am I being satisfied with this temporary pleasure? If I put 1/10 of that effort to turn the attention within, I can experience homogeneous mass of bliss which will never stop. So they turn the attention within, realize the self. And what do they realize? Ananda ghano vipaschit. A wise man has gone beyond sorrow because no more attachments to the temporary pleasures. Turn the attention within, experience that yes, this is my nature, which is of bliss absolute. Ananda ghana. Vishoka ananda ghano vipaschit. Swayam kutaschinna bibheti kaschit. Is not scared of anything. Na bibheti kaschit. By himself, swayam kutaschinna bibheti kaschit. By himself doesn't scare anybody or get scared by anybody. So becomes fearless and does not cause fear. Why does not cause fear to others? Because no attachment, nothing one wants from anybody else. One is free. When sannyas is taken, this is one of the important steps in that. That is called Abhayadan. Abhayadan, what does that mean? It's the highest dan actually. As long as there is a need from somebody, that person has to be scared of me. Because I need something from that person. It may be anything, an object or love or knowledge or power, position, name, fame, so many things. So I am a threat to the opposite person or I am a threat to the world. As long as I live in the individual jiva bhav that I am this limited entity, now I want to become successful because I want to become happy. So now I am a challenge to the world. And there will be people who will be scared of me, who will be threatened by me, because it is a world of cutthroat competition. One has to live in this world. So constantly there will be, I am a threat to the world is a challenge to me. This goes on. Because there is expectation, because there is something that I need. When a person has understood that the world is incapable of giving what I want truly, I want unconditional, pure happiness, permanent happiness. World is not capable of giving it. So I can play a role in the world, but I have no expectation from the world that this will fulfill my deepest need. That person who has sufficient detachment from the worldly people, things, objects, takes sannyas. And while taking sannyas, what does one renounce? All the three realms, bhuhu, bhuvaha, suvaha. This world, the interspace, the higher worlds, and says that I want nothing from any of these three. And one actually does one viraja homa. So one gives up the attachment to the 5 koshas. That happens in viraja homa. And one comes to abide in the self. And one drops. It is all gone. No expectation from the world. So there is no threat. That's how people like Gautam Buddha or Narad Rishi are able to transform Valmiki, Ratnakar into Valmiki, or an Angulimal into a Buddhist monk. Because they want nothing from anyone. So their mind is absolutely at peace. And so there's nothing to fear, because when I don't want anything from anybody, I'm not dependent, there is no attachment, no fear. But what about the world? The world may want something from me. Whatever I can give, I will give. And what a great master is able to give is so much more than what the world is even capable of receiving. And they continuously give, because they are fulfilled. They are operating from happiness, not for happiness. So, na swayam kutaschin na babhuva kaschit. Na bibheti kaschit, sorry. Swayam kutaschin na babhuva kaschit comes in the Gita and the Upanishad. That's the same expression. Little change. Here it is Bibheti Kaschit. Doesn't get scared of anybody. Does not scare anybody. Na anya asti pantha bhavabandha muktehe. There is no other path to be free from the cycle of transmigration, from the cycle of birth and death. Till one doesn't realize this self, the cycle of birth and death will go on, including if a person is saying that I am experiencing only absence. See, in the Upanishad, a very powerful line is said. Asanneva sa bhavati asad brahmeti vedachet santamenam tato viduriti. The wise people have said that one who thinks that Atma is non-existent and thinks that non-existence is the ultimate reality will become non-existent. Asanneva sa bhavati. That person will become non-existent. Asad brahmeti vedachet. If they say that Brahman or the ultimate reality is Asad, it is non-existence. Now what does that mean? It does not mean that person will die. No. The mind gets absorbed in the thought of nothingness. And so that person does not experience this bliss, Ananda Ghana, Vishoka, all this which was said, that the positive experience is not there. Then what is the experience? Nothingness also is a vritti of the mind. Like we gave the example yesterday. The first person who comes on the Zoom call says there is no one here. That no one also is a thought, is a perception only. That there is nobody. Who is perceiving that I? Who is this I? This I is of this nature. Drashtaram is of this nature. Akhanda Bodham, Vipapma, Viraja, Vimrityu, all this. Now if the person says that there is only nothingness, the focus is not on this I and the nature of this I, then this I is absorbed in a state of blank, which is a thought, which is a vritti. In some ways it is also called Prakriti Laya Moksha. Meaning one is in a state of jadatva, one is in a state of inertness, because the nothingness is what I am absorbing my mind in. Ultimate reality is zero, is nothing. So in fact the transcendence of the mind doesn't happen. That's the whole thing there. When a person shifts the attention to the knower and the knower's nature is understood as all these, the transcendence of the mind happens. Person wakes up to the reality. That is Sat. But if one says no, ultimate reality is only a zero, a zero, a zero, then the mind is absorbed in that zero. It is still the mind. Hence here he says, Na anya asti pantha. There is no other path, bhavabandha muktehe, to get free from this cycle of birth and death, because the cause of this cycle of birth and death is what? If you remember the ignorance cycle. Ignorance leads to false identification with the BMI. That leads to the sense of incompleteness. And when I feel incomplete, then according to my vasanas, I want to be complete. Now these vasanas will manifest as desires, thoughts, actions, results, which further strengthen the vasana. Now this is the cycle. The entire samsara bhavabandhana is this. Till the ignorance doesn't go and till this knowledge of the self doesn't arise, this cycle of birth and death will go on, round, 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 one goes. So then what is the solution? He says, no other solution except destroy ignorance. Whichever path you may take, that path can be anything. Vedanta doesn't say that only through Jnana Marg you will reach. You can reach through Bhakti Marg, you can reach through Karma Marg, you can reach through Yoga Marg. Any path one can take. But the end result of that path will be, if the end result is not destruction of ignorance and self-knowledge, that path will not lead to the reality. If it is somewhere else got stuck, like in nothingness. Nowhere in the Hindu culture, in our scriptures, in the Vedas, or even in the Upanishads or the Gita, it is said that the ultimate reality is a Shunya. People who are following that particular path of Shunyavad, they may say that, but the Vedic sanction is not there for that. So, na anya pantha bhavabandha muktehe vina swatattva avagamam mumukshoho. Without knowing the true nature of one's own self, a mumukshu, a seeker of freedom, will not become free. Now, one thing is very important. See, we have to know the goal and the means very clearly. Will we take a vehicle and just start driving? Without deciding first where do I need to reach and which is the route do I need to take. If I don't know the destination, simply if I'm driving, I won't reach anywhere. And second, if I know the destination, then I should also know whether this route will take me to that destination or take me in opposite direction or confuse me completely. When we get into any religion, I must know first and foremost what is the concept of moksha in that religion. What is the concept of God in that religion? What is the concept of creation in that religion? What is the means to moksha in that religion? What is the concept of self in that religion? If all this is not clear to me, I just follow it because I'm born into a particular religion, let us say. I may just do some practices, maybe gain some purity of mind or maybe gain some, follow certain values. But this Bhavabandha Mukti will not happen unless one knows this very clearly. And then one should decide whether this is what I want. Most of the people don't even inquire into these. They just get into religion and they think that religion is only some rites, rituals, prayer, getting some benefits from the Lord. Very limited understanding. There are so many religions in the world. Before even going into any of them, or if one is already into any of them, first I should identify what is the concept of moksha, what is the concept of bandhan, what is the means to liberation, what is the concept of God, what is the concept of creation, what is the relationship between the creator, creation and the creature, what is the concept of freedom, what is the state of realization, what happens after realization. These things I should know. Because this is a subjective science. Religion is not meant only for making my life better in this world with some benefits. No. If in religion I don't ask these questions, where else will I ask? About moksha, etc., who else will tell me? Hence he says here, Swa tattva avagamam mumukshoho vina na anya pantha. There is no other path. I have to wake up to realize the self. So for today we will stop here. These three verses are very, very beautiful, indicating the nature of the self as well as the inevitability of this knowledge. That why this knowledge one must get. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Harihi.